Welcome back to another episode of the House Husband Diaries. As always, I am your host, Carter C. And today we are talking Forrest Fenn again. Surprise! What are we talking about Forrest Fenn today? Talking about backstory. Some people may call it legacy. But there's a story, I feel like, with the chase that's not being told. And I think it's important to the solve and something that'll come out later on. We go, oh, that makes sense. But we're not thinking about it right now. And I get this because, well, let me start off by saying this. I have never spoken to or communicated with Forrest Fenn in any way. As far as I know, he doesn't know I exist. I think a few people may have sent him some videos of mine or something that I did not ask for. So he may know that I exist. But as far as I know, we've never had any sort of interaction. So, hey, Forrest, if you're watching, right? Somebody sends that. But I've enjoyed this tremendously. So my biggest question for the chase is why did Forrest do this, right? So you can be a maverick, you can be eccentric, you can do all these kinds of things, but there's another purpose. Now we can say, well, he says that in the poem, right? And then was it the fifth stanza? So why is it that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answer is I already know. I've done it, tired, and now I'm weak. So is that saying there's a backstory? Is that a deeper, is that a not so subtle hint that there's something there? There's an answer, there's a there. And that finding that backstory or something about that backstory will help us interpret the clues, will help us solve the poem, follow the map, the clues in the map, in the poem, to where the treasure chest is hidden? Possibly. So I think, when I start with why did Forrest do this, it leads me to his legacy. There's got to be there's got to be some reason why, not just because I want to be different. And so I want to, he says it's the thrill of the chase. I believe that on the surface, but he also says that he learned early on in the book that there's a difference between telling the truth and telling all of the truth. And so I think part of it is the thrill of the chase, but there's been some rumblings that, Forrest isn't the biggest fan of the government. He even said so in so many words in The Thrill of the Chase. There's been rumblings that I've heard that supposedly Forrest may or may not have been in the CIA. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but there's some thoughts that his military career may or may not have ended with his fighter pilot days. And then it brings up the question, and I haven't done any research into this, right? These are just questions that I have, things that I hear, and things that I read, and people that question and stuff. And it just sits in the back of my mind. And I thought, before I go on to my secondary analysis of The Thrill of the Chase and the themes in the book to help me figure out a solve, that this was kind of this unspoken topic in the back of my mind that comes up over and over in conversations I have in private with other people, and even on live shows that you see. And we never really dig into it. There's always other questions and questions from other people. And so it's interesting. And I just wanted to do a video on this and just kind of put it out there. So why did the FBI and the BLM raid Forrest's house? Like, I haven't done the research on that. Like I said in a previous video, I don't get into people's personal lives so much for just the regular part of the chase. But what I do think is interesting is that if he did work for the CIA, why then would two government agencies raid him? Wouldn't he have immunity if he worked for the CIA? Or is that all part of something? Or does that lead to a bigger story that we're not being told? That's not just kid games. That's not just, what I learned in school. And, life lessons of bad painting purchases and hard to sell paintings and things? I don't know. So, with that being said, what do you think? Because here's the question that I have for myself. And I keep asking all of these questions to myself, and I'm asking them to you as well. What do you think Forrest Fenn wants the finder to know or to learn or to do in order to find the treasure chest? Is there a certain list of qualities, a certain list of things to research? Is there just something that you need to learn, and that when you learn that through study, experiments, whatever, experiencing the outdoors, that you'll learn something, and that'll lead you to the treasure chest? Is there a type of person that you come in the right frame of mind or the right spirit towards the chase, and so that helps you decipher some of the clues in the poem? Is there something about Forrest's legacy? Is there something he doesn't want to share except for with the finder or until after he's passed? Are there these bigger questions, or are those just rabbit trails, rabbit holes in and of themselves? All right. So then this leads me to, why would Forrest use the stories that he chose for his memoir, The Thrill of the Chase? Those stories are, as I've said a number of times, highly disconnected, not a series of stories the average person would choose to put in their quote unquote memoir. Most people would say, I think, and I think it has been the case throughout history, if someone's writing a memoir, they're taking the top 15 or 20 stories, or the top 5 or 10 stories of their lives, of each person's life. They're going to take the best stories that put them in the best light and say, here's my memoir. Here's how great I am. And maybe a few of the stories will be difficult learning experiences that, through those trials and tribulations and through those struggles and through those failures, the woman or the man, writing their memoir and sharing those stories, through those hard times came, the good times and the learning experiences that brought to fruition the great successes of their lives. So, what are those great successes in Forrest's life that he's telling us about when he's talking about not being made fun of at a church social for not being allowed or not being able to cross a street, or saying that he's uneducated and never read these books and he thinks he can write better, and he's messing around with people with all that kind of stuff. So I want to put the backstory in the background for a second as the foundation for the question of, let's talk about some of these stories, but let's look at it through the lens of a few of the popular building blocks for solves. And so these stories about Yellowstone, he spent every summer in Yellowstone. So West Yellowstone, that whole area is beautiful. The long ride home, driving up there in the schoolhouse in Wyoming, Cody the buffalo, looking for Lewis and Clark. And all of those stories are the experiences. And so Yellowstone's very pivotal in Forrest's life. And then you have, and so I'll just go ahead and throw fly fishing in there, because all of his fly fishing, we already know that's another popular building block for a number of solves. And then you have Native American history, right? And I guess before that, I'll throw hot springs in too, because hot springs are in Yellowstone and all that, and very popular for solves. So you have fly fishing, you have hot springs, you have Yellowstone, and then you have Native American history, right? And Native American history all throughout the Rockies, all throughout all of America, basically. So, did his collecting arrowheads, his, purchasing of, I think it was San Lazaro. Is there another find, that maybe he found and hasn't made public, and the finder of the treasure chest will also find this hidden, who knows, special thing. And then we have, Vietnam, his special spot, waterfalls, and the Vietnam Laos story. And then we have Eric Sloan. We have his friend, and who comes up, and he I think he has a book or a painting or something about Brown, and everybody talks about, hey, well, there's some Brown. And then you have important literature, and people are looking at Hemingway and J.D. Salinger and Catcher in the Rye and Time magazines and all of these different works of literature, and people are reading Robert Redford books, and is there anything Eric Sloan's books, and are there any hints in all of these other books, Fly Water for fly fishing? What can we gather out of that, and what do those stories tell us? And I just wonder if those big picture items, or those big picture ideas that pop out at us, those places, those people, those things, if they're just more of the noise, right? That they're the ants, and that maybe there's more subtle background themes to many of these stories. And the first thing that popped in my mind was the idea of experiential learning. And so there's something about the thrill of the chase that Forrest keeps mentioning, right? And that's the title of the book. So we've got this thrill of the chase. It's always about, it's about finding the first arrowhead, and then finding the next arrowhead. And then it's about finding the next great painting. Because anybody can sell a great painting, but not everybody can find a great painting. It's finding, bottle caps. It's finding great fishing holes. It's finding all of these things in life, and experiencing these great, wonderful things that part of the joy of that place, or that arrowhead, or whatever it is the fact that it took you a while to find it, that you don't find those great things every day, and so you enjoy them all the more when you do find them. So you have experiential learning, and you have freedom. He talks about freedom, going and looking for Lewis and Clark, driving home with your brother, 1,600 miles. Peggy giving him the freedom to hop in his plane and go wherever he wants, whenever he wants, and she'll always be there waiting for him. Freedom, jumping out the window in Miss Ford's class, sliding down the rail. Freedom to take a pie and run out back and eat it behind a tree. And then I think of the mysteries of life and death, and the great poems that Forrest recites in the book about the road that the door of darkness that people pass through, and the road that no one has come back to tell us of. And so when I think about these big overarching themes that are more subtle and that play in the background of a lot of these stories, freedom, gypsy magic, right? Jumping out of the window and going and hiding underneath the wagon and watching the girls dance and the gypsies dance. It makes me start to think, as I start to go through the analysis, the secondary analysis of themes and keywords in the book, is to try to have this backstory and these larger themes in the back of my mind as I'm going through, to have some sort of imagination along with a more analytical mind, so that it's not just a spreadsheet. It's not just saying, okay, well, here's the facts, but what are these sort of big themes in life that Forrest values? And then how do those play into the stories that he chose? So for the thrill of the chase. So what chapters or stories stick out the most through this lens? One of my most recent videos, I was talking about Father on the Banco, Me in the Middle. I didn't talk about that one in that video, but these stories. Why is he sharing this story? Why is he sharing that story? Why did he choose to share, this tidbit? Is there something here? Is there not just because this story is silly or it's funny or it puts him in a good light or a bad light, but maybe there's a bigger theme that that has to do with freedom, learning, life and death. So then I'll just sort of ask you, what do you think? Does Forrest have a larger story about his time in New Mexico left to tell? Does he have a larger story about Colorado or about Wyoming or about Montana that he has yet to tell? Is the point of the thrill of the chase, the memoir and the treasure, hiding the treasure, is the point of all of that to close up stories he's already told in Yellowstone, in Montana, Wyoming? I know Yellowstone's in Wyoming, but whatever. Montana, Wyoming. He really hasn't talked much about Colorado, or is he trying to close up his stories in New Mexico? Or is there a story yet to be told? And is there a spot in one of those states where the story has yet to be told? And that's more of what we should be looking for: the freedom, the learning, the bigger picture items. So that's just kind of my intro to the backstory. I think there's a backstory there. I think there's some bigger, and these background issues, the stuff like freedom and experiential learning and life and death. I don't think those complicate. I don't want it to complicate. I don't think it does complicate a solve. I think it can make it very simple. You talk about a cemetery. You talk about crossing the street. You talk about some kind of small things that you can use to be an analogy for, a very deep, large theme, overarching theme. So I do think something's there. That's the lens that I will be using over the next month or so as I kind of go through a secondary and tertiary analysis and look to kind of dial in a solve somewhere. Hopefully something will pop out to me and I'll feel pretty good about it. But we'll see. I mean, I'm filming it all and sharing it with you guys. So let me know what you think about a backstory. If you think it's important, if you think that just the stories that are in the thrill of the chase and the poem is to be taken at face value, or if you think there is something deeper that connects them all, something yet to be told, something left untold, or is everything that he wants to say in his 3 books, but especially the main stories and the thrill of the chase. So as always, thanks so much for watching this episode of the House Husband Diaries. I appreciate it so much. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you on the next episode of the House Husband Diaries.